Welcome to Built Through Time. For those of us utterly fascinated by ancient engineering, the Great Pyramid of Giza isn't just a wonder, it's a profound, almost unbelievable enigma.
Absolutely.
We know its monumental scale, literally millions of stone blocks, some weighing a staggering 80 tons,
Yeah.
all astonishingly assembled in just over 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
But for anyone who truly dives into this topic, the real question isn't what they built, but how. How is this even remotely possible without modern machinery?
Exactly. It's a mystery that has captivated scholars and, curious minds for millennia.
Right. So today, our mission is to move beyond the well-worn paths of traditional theories.
Yes. And explore some groundbreaking new research that's truly shaking up our understanding of how these ancient giants came to be.
Sounds fascinating.
And you're right, the sheer scale of Khufu's pyramid reaching 481 feet high with roughly 2.5 million blocks, each averaging 2.5 tons.
It's just mind-boggling.
It is. All within about 23 years, it truly pushes the boundaries of imagination.
So what are we going to cover?
Today, we're going to unpack the historical accounts, examine the most prominent theories, and then reveal some fascinating multidisciplinary insights that might just offer profound new understanding into this ancient puzzle.
Okay.
We'll look at everything from the initial bedrock preparation to how those massive stones reached the very top.
And even who built them, right? Because
Yeah.
there's some myths there.
Exactly. Challenge some long-held beliefs about who built them.
All right, let's begin right there. Let's tackle that persistent myth. Who really built these structures?
Yeah.
Were they enslaved, as we often see in popular culture, old Hollywood films?
Yeah, that's a common misconception, but it's one that's been largely debunked by archaeological evidence.
Okay.
Modern research, including the discovery of worker cemeteries and purpose-built villages near the Giza pyramids, indicates these were tens of thousands of skilled workers.
Skilled workers, not slaves.
Skilled workers. They camped near the pyramids, worked either for a salary or as a form of tax payment, and they received high-quality provision.
What kind of provision?
We're talking prime meat, plenty of bread and beer, which was, a staple of their diet.
Oh.
It even appears some estimates suggest around 5,000 were permanent workers, with others working in 3 or 4 month shifts.
Oh, maybe seasonally?
Often during the Nile flood season when their agricultural lands were submerged. So it was an intelligent use of a large workforce.
Makes sense.
You can even find graffiti left by work crews, like the Friends of Khufu gang, showing their pride and dedication.
That really shifts the perception, doesn't it? It's not just debunking the slave myth.
No, not at all.
It suggests a profound sense of identity, maybe even internal organization among these work crews. Does this also imply a level of administrative and social organization that we often underestimate for that period?
Absolutely. It speaks to an incredible logistical and managerial feat. I mean, imagine coordinating tens of thousands of people,
Yeah.
providing their daily needs, ensuring their health, maintaining morale, all while executing the most precise construction project known to the ancient world. It required intricate planning and social cohesion on a massive scale.
Okay, moving from the people to the process itself. How did they even begin with the groundwork? And where did they source the sheer volume of materials for something like the Great Pyramid?
Well, the precision achieved in leveling the foundation is truly astounding.
How precise?
The 13.1-acre base of the Great Pyramid was leveled to within a fraction of an inch.
A fraction of an inch. That's comparable to modern laser leveling.
Pretty much. This was likely done using water-filled trenches around the base as a standard, with measuring rods ensuring the ground was parallel to the water level. It's a testament to their early understanding of surveying.
Incredible. And the materials.
For materials, locally quarried limestone was used for the main body of the pyramid. Higher quality fine white limestone came from Tura, near modern Cairo.
That was probably for the outer casing, right? The smooth finish.
Likely, yes, for the outer casing. And then there's the granite, used for burial chambers and sometimes the pyramid's outer layers. That was quarried near Aswan, hundreds of miles away in Upper Egypt.
Hundreds of miles.
Yeah.
Okay, how did they even cut these stones? Especially the granite. That's notoriously hard.
It is.
And then once cut, how did they move them? From those distant quarries all the way to the construction site.
Right. So for softer stones like limestone, copper chisels, drills, and saws were effective. But for harder stones like granite, they relied on, time-consuming methods.
Like what?
Things like pounding with dolerite, that's a very hard, dense, igneous rock, and using drilling or sawing with abrasive quartz sand.
Sand abrasion, so just grinding it down.
Essentially, yeah, relying on the sheer volume of sharp sand particles to slowly grind away the rock. Once cut, the blocks were primarily moved by sledge.
Okay.
We have tomb art, like an illustration from the 12th dynasty tomb of Jehudi-Hotep, depicting 172 men pulling an alabaster statue on a sledge.
Wow. And what's crucial in that image?
There's a person pouring a liquid, likely water, in front of the sled runners.
To reduce friction.
Exactly. To reduce friction, modern experiments have actually validated this. Water drastically cuts friction, making it feasible for teams to move massive objects.
So less manpower and more river power and friction reduction, it seems.
You could say that, yeah?
It's incredible to think that a direct account from an ancient official details this. Does the Diary of Mirror offer any other fascinating glimpses into their daily life or logistical challenges beyond just transportation?
It does, which is why it's such a remarkable find. The Diary of Mirror, discovered in 2013, consists of 4,500-year-old papyri.
Amazing.
It's essentially a logbook written by an Egyptian official detailing his daily life and work over several months.
A logbook.
Yes. And it explicitly describes the transportation of limestone blocks from Turquoise to Giza by boat, across the Nile and through a complex system of canals they likely engineered.
So canals were key.
It proves that efficient waterways and organized flotillas were absolutely central to the logistics. Confirms they weren't just dragging stones across sand. Mirror himself details collecting payment for his crews, distributing food, supervising the transfer of materials. It gives us an unprecedented first-person look at this massive, disciplined operation.
Okay, so we have the workforce, the materials, the transport. Now, the big question, getting the stones up. For centuries, the most prevalent theories have centered around ramps, right?
That's correct.
We even have ancient Greek historians like Diodorus Siculus writing about their use. What does the evidence tell us about these traditional ramp models for the Great Pyramid?
Well, it's certainly reasonable to conclude the Egyptians used ramps. Physical evidence of ramps has been found at other sites like Karnak and emerging from quarry sites near the Sphinx at Giza.
Okay.
Even ancient mathematical papyri, like the Rind mathematical papyrus, indicate they possessed the knowledge to calculate ramp volumes.
So they knew how to build them.
Yes, but applying these traditional models to the Great Pyramid presents significant problems, just because of its sheer scale and the incredible precision required.
Okay, let's look closer at those challenges. Starting with the long ramp model. That proposes a single massive ramp on one side.
Correct.
What are the practical issues there?
The primary issue is the gradient, the slope. For workers to drag 2.5-ton stones up, the slope couldn't really exceed 812 degrees.
Right, too steep and it's impossible.
Exactly. So to reach the Great Pyramid's 481-foot height at that gentle slope, this ramp would need to be well over a mile long.
A mile?
Over a mile. And there's simply no room on the Giza Plateau for such a structure.
Why not?
Cemeteries for nobility were built simultaneously to the east and west of the pyramid. The north side has a steep slope. That leaves the south as the only theoretical option. Crucially, no remains of such a massive ramp have ever been found there. Plus, think about this. The sheer volume of material needed to build this ramp would nearly equal or even surpass the pyramid's own volume.
Wait, what? Building a second pyramid just to build the first one?
Pretty much. It defies logic and certainly archaeological evidence.
Okay, so if a long, straight ramp wasn't feasible, what about a spiral one, wrapped around the exterior? That would at least save space on the plateau.
The spiral ramp model does address the space and material issues, yes. But it introduces other critical flaws. As consider this. How would the architects accurately monitor the pyramid's angles to ensure the faces met at a single perfect point if the structure was constantly obscured by a spiraling ramp for decades?
Good point. Maintaining that precision would be incredibly difficult.
Almost impossible. We know the geometry was incredibly accurate. The variation between the longest and shortest sides of the Great Pyramid's base is less than 8 inches across a 13-acre base.
That's astonishing accuracy for the time. Virtually flawless.
It really is. Also, a narrow spiral ramp would significantly slow construction. It'd be difficult for two groups to operate simultaneously, one bringing blocks up, another bringing sleds down.
Bottlenecks.
Exactly. This would stretch the already tight 23-year time frame well beyond what Pharaoh Khufu achieved.
So if these exterior ramp models face such serious, almost insurmountable challenges, what else could possibly explain how these giants were built? This is where our understanding takes a truly fascinating turn, isn't it?
Exactly. This is where things get really interesting. In 2003, French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin proposed a revolutionary internal ramp theory for the Great Pyramid.
Internal, inside the pyramid.
Yes. He believes that after an initial external ramp built the bottom third of the pyramid, reaching about 160 feet high, this external ramp was then deliberately dismantled.
Good.
And here's the ingenious part. He suggests its limestone blocks were actually reused for the upper layers of the pyramid.
That elegantly explains why no remains of a large external ramp have ever been found.
Precisely. By modern observations or satellite imagery, nothing.
So the internal part, how did that work? It sounds like quite a leap of imagination.
Well, simultaneously with that external ramp, an internal spiral ramp, maybe about 6 feet wide with a 7% grade, was constructed within the pyramid's core.
Okay, inside. But how did they turn the corners with huge blocks on a narrow ramp?
That's the clever bit. Houdin suggests the Egyptians might have used simple wooden cranes placed in temporary openings at the turns.
Cranes? Like what?
Possibly adapted from devices like the shadoof, that familiar counterbalanced lever system they used to lift water from the Nile. These internal turning points are key to the whole operation.
What physical evidence supports this? It sounds radical, albeit elegant.
It does sound radical, I agree, but there's compelling evidence. On the northeast corner of the pyramid, about 270 feet up, there's a notch.
A notch?
Yes, and it would have been an ideal turning point for blocks. In 2008, Bob Breyer, a respected Egyptologist, actually explored this notch.
And what did he find?
He found an L-shaped room behind it, which Houdin identified as exactly that, an intersection point where blocks were turned using a crane. The architectural details, like its vaulted ceiling, suggest it was purposefully built, not just some random void.
Interesting. Any other evidence?
Furthermore, a 1986 microgravimetry survey, remember, that's the technique using gravity variations to detect density differences.
Right, to find hidden structures.
It showed lower density areas at the pyramid's edges. This was an anomaly the original French surveying team couldn't fully explain, but it's consistent with internal voids, perhaps the internal ramp itself. And there's even physical evidence of internal ramp construction at a 5th dynasty sun temple at Abu Ghurab, built about a century after Khufu's pyramid. It shows this was a known technique, albeit used on a less grand scale.
So this wasn't totally out of the blue. They had the know-how.
It seems so.
So what does this all mean for finally verifying the internal ramp theory? What's the next step?
Well, Houdin and Breyer are actively seeking approval for non-destructive surveys. Things like more powerful microgravimetry, infrared photography, or sonar.
Using new tech to look inside without damage.
Exactly. Thermal photography, for instance, could reveal cool air pockets within the hot stone, indicating hidden passages like an internal ramp. If proven, this theory gives us a window into one of the greatest intellectual achievements of all time.
It really demonstrates how truly advanced ancient Egyptian architects were.
It certainly does. It's a promising avenue to finally prove or disprove this millennia-old mystery and, solidify our understanding.
Okay, now let's shift our gaze to an even older marvel, the Step Pyramid of Djoser at Saqqara. That's considered a technological precursor to the Giza pyramids, right?
Correct. It predates them.
And a recent multidisciplinary analysis suggests something truly groundbreaking about its construction, hinting at an entirely different approach.
Yes, a fascinating 2024 study proposes that Djoser's complex might have been built, at least in part, using a sophisticated hydraulic system.
Hydraulics, water power.
Water power. The location at Saqqara wasn't arbitrary. It's strategically downstream of a watershed, fed by the Abu Sir Wadi, that's a seasonal riverbed, and possibly even the larger Wadi Tafla, which may have been diverted.
So they were managing water on a large scale.
It highlights the early Egyptians' advanced understanding of their hydrological environment and how to harness it.
A hydraulic system for building a pyramid. That sounds truly unprecedented. How exactly would that work?
The theory points to the massive Gizr el-Mudir enclosure. It's an older and much larger structure than Djoser's complex itself.
Okay.
It's identified as a check dam. Its advanced geotechnical design, strikingly akin to modern zoned earthen dams, would have trapped sediment and water, forming a large reservoir.
A reservoir near the site. Then what?
Then the vast, dry moat surrounding Djoser's complex, up to 50 meters wide and 20 meters deep, was likely filled with water from this reservoir.
So the moat wasn't just defensive, it was functional.
Potentially, yes. Inside the dry moat's south section, there's a deep trench, 27 meters deep, 3 meters wide. It seems to have functioned as an elaborate water treatment facility.
Water treatment, why?
It had successive compartments for settling, retention, and purification, ensuring a supply of clean, sediment-free water. This whole system optimized water quality and regulated flow for practical uses, possibly including construction.
A massive civil engineering project just to support the pyramid's construction.
It seems that way.
So this raises the crucial question. How was this treated water actually used to build the pyramid? How could water lift massive stones?
Okay, this is where the internal architecture comes in. Specifically, the step pyramids, north and south, twin shafts.
Twin shafts.
Yes. The granite boxes at the bottom of these shafts, once thought maybe to be Djoser's burial place, are now theorized to be water inlet-outlet systems with removable plugs.
Ah, like valves.
Sort of. These shafts are connected by a 200-meter underground tunnel, suggesting water could be transferred between them.
Okay, so how does that lift stone?
The hypothesis is that a massive wooden float inside the north shaft would have lifted stones as the shaft filled with water.
Using buoyancy.
Exactly, allowing construction to proceed from the pyramid center in a kind of volcano fashion, rather than solely from the exterior.
That's an incredibly clever adaptation of known technology, using buoyancy on a monumental scale. But for something that large, would there have been enough water, given the desert environment?
That's a critical point, absolutely. Modeling suggests that building the entire pyramid solely using this lift could have required maybe up to 18 million cubic meters of water.
That's a lot of water.
It is. However, if the system was optimized,
How?
using the float for both lifting when filling the shaft and as a counterweight for hauling when draining, the water consumption could be significantly reduced, maybe by 2/3.
Okay, helps.
And importantly, the Wadi Tafla catchment area alone could have supplied between 4 and 54 million cubic meters over a 20-30-year construction period.
So potentially feasible, especially if the climate was wetter back then.
Potentially, yes, especially if the climate was more humid during the Old Kingdom, as some studies suggest. What this really indicates is that the ancient Egyptians likely employed a diverse suite of methods.
Not just one magic bullet.
No. Adapting to water availability, combining this innovative hydraulic approach with other techniques, maybe traditional ramps for the initial layers or when water supply was limited. Their ingenuity was not about one singular solution, but a complex, adaptable toolkit.
What truly stands out here, whether it's the Great Pyramid's internal ramp or the Step Pyramid's potential hydraulic system, is not just raw ingenuity, but a profound Egyptian mastery of environmental resources and adaptive problem solving. They weren't just building, they were innovating by deeply understanding natural physics, finding often unseen multiple solutions.
Absolutely. It wasn't just about moving stones. It was about orchestrating nature itself, in a way.
Yeah.
Indeed, these new insights underscore the incredible intellectual achievement and foresight of ancient Egyptian architects. It challenges us to rethink our assumptions about ancient technologies.
Definitely.
And recognize that there's always more to learn from these silent giants as they slowly reveal their secrets through new, collaborative, multidisciplinary approaches.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other secrets might the pyramids hold, waiting for new technologies and, open-minded analysis to reveal them?
There's certainly more to discover.
Thank you for listening to Built Through Time. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep being curious.